Yes. Now, I want to use this medium to welcome everyone once again. It's been a long while we actually met on this platform. That is because we have a lot of work we have to run after. I'm sorry for that. But anyways, I take this time out to welcome you all. You're welcome. Today we will be talking about respiration and the respiratory system. Respiration and respiratory system. We would know before now. Let's just quickly use this opportunity to whet our appetites. When we talk about system, we of course know that living things are divided, or let me say, living things are broken down into systems. Okay? Now, the systems are further broken down into the organs. The organs are further broken down into tissues, and tissues broken down into living organism is a cell. The combinations of cells gives us tissues. Combinations of tissues that work together give us organs, and combinations of various organs performing the same function gives us systems. And we have various types of systems. Now, today we'll be talking about respiratory system. Now, I am going to make it as interactive as it can be. It's just a pity we don't have much of the students online now, but nevertheless, we can still do something that, will be worthwhile. Okay? Yeah. Let us start with what do we understand by respiration? What is respiration? That is, what do we know as respiration before we actually delve into what respiratory systems is? Now, respiration simply means exchange of gases. The exchange of gases between an organism and the environment. The exchange of gases between an organism and the environment. That is, we talk about oxygen and carbon dioxide, or carbon dioxide as you may want to call it. So a process by which an organism takes in oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide into the environment is simply referred to as respiration, which we also basically call breathing. That is breathing in and breathing out. But respiration is far more than simply breathing. Now, let us see, we have three types of respiration. Three types of respiration. Number one, we have the external respiration. External respiration. I hope somebody is writing some things down. The external respiration simply is the exchange of gases between an organism and the environment. That is, the organism takes in oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide using the various respiratory organ or systems of that particular organism. For example, human beings, they take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide through their lungs. You understand me now? They breathe in through the nose or the mouth into the lungs, and in the lungs there are exchange of gases. Oxygen are being taken into the lungs while carbon dioxide is being given out back into the environment. That is what we call external respiration. Then there is another one we call the internal respiration. Internal respiration simply is the exchange of gases between the blood and the body cells. The exchange of gases between the blood and the body cells. The cells are being bathed in extracellular matrix. Okay. Now, inside the blood carries the oxygen. There's a particular part of the red blood cells, which is known as the hemoglobin. It is the hemoglobin that carries oxygen. Now, when an hemoglobin, when an oxygen molecule is being attached to hemoglobin, the combination is called oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin is just like a proteinous substance found on red blood cells that help to attach the oxygen. Now, the oxygen is being carried by the red blood cells into the cells of the body where they are being needed. Okay. Now, when this happens, we call it internal respiration. The oxygen is being given and carbon dioxide is being given back on the hemoglobin. There is an exchange. So the carbon dioxide will not, the oxygen is being given into the cell, while carbon dioxide is attached back to the cell, back to the blood, which the blood will now move out back into the lungs, which will now help to remove it back into the environment. Now, I said when you have oxygen on the hemoglobin, it's called oxyhemoglobin. But when you have carbon dioxide on the hemoglobin, it's called carbonyl hemoglobin. So that is just a difference between the two. Okay, so that is that. Then the third one is cellular respiration. I have mentioned 3 types of respiration now. I said we have the external respiration between the organism and the environment. Okay, that's the first line of action or the first line of contact. Then we go further by having the internal respiration between the blood and the cells of the body. Then lastly, we have the cellular respiration. That is the exchange of gases within the cells, inside the cells. Okay. Now this, I can say, is very, very important. It is very, very important because it is at this stage that food, carbohydrates, is being broken down in the presence of that oxygen that was given into the cells to give us energy. Energy in the form of ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. That is the energy currency of the cells. That is the particular type of energy that the cells require to be able to perform their functions. So I want to say this quickly. What happens inside the respiration? We have the carbohydrate C6H12O6 in the presence of oxygen will give us CO2, that's carbon dioxide, and water, then plus energy, which is ATP. I don't know. There should be a way I can do that so that we can see it. Let me see. I want to write it out very boldly so we can get it very well. We have C6H12O6 plus oxygen will give us CO2 plus H2O plus energy that is in form of ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. I don't know. Let me just put it here. Maybe you will see. Okay. I hope you see that. I hope you can see that. C6H12O6 plus O2 to give us CO2, that's carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So that is basically what we refer to as the cellular respiration, as respiration that occurs in the cell. Now, after that, we have other types of other types of respiration. We have the aerobic and the anaerobic. When we say aerobic, aero means air. You say aeroplane, a plane that flies in the air. So when you hear the word aerobic means exchange of gases that involves oxygen. Okay, oxygen is involved. When oxygen is involved, we say it is aerobic respiration. Meanwhile, there are some other lower organisms that, they produce their energy without oxygen or without air, in the absence of oxygen or in the absence of air. And that is what we refer to as anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic, ANAEROBIC respiration. In such a case, there is no here on YouTube, 2 or 2.5 minutes. So I want us to see quickly. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. Excuse me. All right, here we go. I hope you will see it very well.
All of our cells need energy. They get it by breaking down glucose, a simple sugar we get from food. This process, called the oxygen from our oxygen. This process, called cellular respiration, uses oxygen and produces carbon dioxide as waste. The main function of the respiratory system is to provide the oxygen from out of the air and remove the carbon dioxide into the air. This takes place in the lungs, with the gases carried to and from the cells by the bloodstream. The exchange of gases between the blood and the air occurs in the alveoli, microscopic air sacs in the lungs that are surrounded by tiny blood vessels. When we inhale, all 300 million alveoli expand and fill with air. Oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the blood, and carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the alveoli. Diffusion is the natural movement of gas or liquid particles from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Think of how the smell of baking biscuits spreads out from the oven right through the house. Diffusion can even take place through a membrane if the particles are small enough to get through it. For example, a helium balloon that's been left for a couple of days gets smaller and softer because the helium has slowly diffused through the skin of the balloon into the surrounding air. The walls of the alveoli are membranes too, ones that oxygen and carbon dioxide can diffuse through. Because breathing keeps bringing fresh air into the lungs and the circulatory system keeps bringing blood that is low in oxygen and high in carbon dioxide, diffusion always acts to bring oxygen into the body and take carbon dioxide out. And this goes on day in, day out, for every minute of our lives. So that our cells stay alive, and so that we stay alive.
Yes, thank you very much for taking your time to see that video. I appreciate you for that. Now,
my job is to make college easier because students have a lot of fun.
All right, so now we have actually talked about what respiration is. Now, let us see the respiration in man. Respiration in man. Respiration basically occurs, exchange of gases, occur in the lungs of man. Now, when you take many of you will have seen the lungs of a ram, of a cow, of a goat before. There are two lungs, the right and the left. You get? Now, the lungs, they have branches, various branches. Okay, there is a pipe coming from the esophagus. Okay, so the pipe is called the bronchi. Okay, now it divides into two to give, the esophagus divides into two to give bronchi. Now the bronchi is now divided into various branches to give the bronchioles. Now there are tiny microscopic air sacs surrounding the bronchioles, which are referred to as the alveoli. That is, the plural is alveoli, while single is alveolus. Now, it is these cells that help in the exchange of the gases. I would have loved to have a picture of it here. So let me see. I have a picture of it. Let me bring it up so I can show it to you. Let me bring it up so I can show it to you here. Excuse me. We are still together, I think. Okay. 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 Yeah. There you are. Right. Let it come up so we can see it together. I want this class to be as interactive and self-explanatory as it can be. I just hope we are still together. Okay. Now, while this is loading, I will want us to ask any question from the class. If there is anyone that wants to ask any question, did anybody ask any question? Anyone? I would like you to raise your hand and ask your questions now before we continue. Okay, in the absence of that, just want to see if I can get, okay, anyway, let me show one to you here so we won't take much of our time. Okay, here we are. You can see it. That is how the lungs are. There are two lungs which are found in the chest region of the body. Okay, now that is that. Now quickly let us move ahead and see the respiratory organs of different organisms. The respiratory organs of different organisms, what different organisms use in exchanging their gases. Now, we are going to start with small unicellular organisms. Small unicellular organisms like amoeba, like what do you call it? We have chlamydomonas, the euglena, and so on. How do they exchange their gases? These are unicellular organisms. So they exchange their gases using their body surface, the surface of the cell. You know, they just bath themselves in the medium, in the environment where they find themselves, especially in the aquatic environment. And from there, they exchange gases directly from the environment into the cell. So we have unicellular organisms respire using their body cells. Then we talk about small invertebrates like earthworm, the nematode. They respire using their skin or their body surface as well. You know, as earthworm pass through the soil, it exchanges gases directly with the environment of the soil by taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Okay, we also have small organisms as well, like insects. The insects respire or exchange gases with the environment using their spiracles, S-P-I-R-A-C-L-E-S. The spiracles is what they use in exchange of gases. So also we have, we have the insects, we have the ants, the grasshoppers, the cockroach, the houseflies, the mosquitoes. That is how they respire. You know, they are so small, they don't have lungs. So what they use instead is their spiracles. And their spiracles are often found at the sides of their abdomen. Okay, so that is that. Now let us quickly move to vertebrates, that is animals that have backbones. Now we start with the simplest, which is the aves. The Pisces, when I say Pisces, I'm talking about the fishes. Now, the fishes, of course, they live in aquatic environment, they live in the water. So what do they use to exchange gases? Of course, they use their gills. So aquatic animals like fishes, they use their gills. Now, after that, let's move a little bit higher on the hierarchy. We have the amphibians, like the frogs, the toads, the salamanders, the newts. Okay, what do they use? For example, the toad, they use their lungs, they also live on land. At the early stage of their life, like toad, for example, at the early stage of their life, when they are still tadpoles, they live inside water. And at that stage, they use the gills. So when they are now developing and they want to come back on land, the gills are being transformed into their limbs, their forelimbs, that is their front legs. Okay. And by so doing, they have to change their respiratory organ because the environment they are going into is now changing from the one they developed from. So while they are coming on land, they develop gills. So they respire using gills and skin. That is why you see toads and frogs, their skin are always wet. Okay. So they bath themselves in water and come back on land. So they exchange gases directly using their skin and their lungs. That is for amphibians. Okay, let's talk about the aves, that is the birds. Okay, let's talk about the birds. Now, the birds, because they respire using the air sac. They have air sac in their body, which they use in exchange of gases. Okay, after that, we talk about the reptiles. The reptiles, they respire using their lungs, okay, as well as their skin. Then lastly, we have the mammals. The mammals, they respire using their lungs, basically. So here we have discussed the various organs the organisms use in exchange of gases. Number one, we talk about the small unicellular organisms like the amoeba, the euglena, the parameciums, and so on. I said they respire using their body surface. Then after that, we talk about small invertebrates like insects, okay? All the insects like cockroaches, ants, cockroaches and ants, grasshoppers, and so on. They said they respire using their spiracles. Yes, spiracles. Then we talked about earthworm, for example, as a form of nematode. These ones, they respire using their body as well. And after that, we talk about the fishes. The fish, they respire using the gills, because their gills. Their gills are found under their operculum in their head. Okay. Now, after that, we talk about the amphibians. The amphibians, like the toad, the frogs, the newts, the salamanders, and so on, we said they respire using their lungs and their skin. Okay. Then, because the birds, they respire using their air sacs. Okay. Now, after that, we talk about the reptiles. They respire or they exchange gases using their lungs. And human beings, as an example of the mammals, they respire using their lungs. So that is that. Now, of course, we know where the lungs is being located. The lungs are located in the chest region. No, we have two lungs, one here, and at the center you have your heart. Okay, this from here downward is the abdomen, while from here downward, from here upward is the chest region or the thoracic region. So the thoracic region is where you have your lungs, highly protected with your rib cage, your ribs and your sternum. At the center here, those are the bones of the chest that help to protect your heart and your lungs because they are very delicate. So your exchange of gases occur in the lungs. You get it? So that is that. Thank you all. Is there any question? Anybody that has question that wants to ask? We are here for you. Please ask questions before we actually call it a day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So is it possible you take another topic?
I hope maybe you should stop the recording first so we talk about that.